Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Lorenz, and I am presenting to you today about tips for writing a stellar university essay as you are applying to university programs. I am from Minnesota State University, Mankato, which is based in the United States. And I'll show you the location in just a moment here. But I wanted to highlight that I do have my contact information available for you by email as well as WhatsApp, and I'll share that at the end as well. So if you have any questions or want to reach out after the presentation, please feel free to contact me. So just a quick overview of Minnesota State University, Mankato. So I apologize here. There we go. We are located in the north central part of the United States. We're in the state of Minnesota. So you can see on the map, it's right in the north heart of the United States. We do border Canada. So it's a northern state that does get cold winters, but it also is balanced out by very hot summers and beautiful springs and autumn season. And so we're just getting into our hot summer season right now, and the weather is gorgeous. But I want to mention for students who are not familiar with Minnesota or the university, Minnesota State University, we are about a 5-hour drive from Chicago or a 40-minute flight from Chicago. So if you've been to the US or you know Chicago, we're very close to one of the larger cities. And the state of Minnesota is about a 3-hour flight from anywhere in the continental US, so the lower 48 states. So many of our students come from all over the world. We have about 1,200 international students from over 95 countries, including Turkey. And they come to Minnesota, they study our programs and receive excellent scholarships and funding, and have the chance to get US education and travel throughout the US during their summer breaks and holidays. We have around 130 bachelor degree programs and about 80 graduate and doctoral programs as well. And some of our top programs are aviation, business, biology, civil engineering, and computer information technology. But we have programs across many disciplines in arts and humanities, healthcare, sciences, business, and education. So that's a little overview of our university campus. And something I'll mention before getting into the topic is we offer great scholarships for international students. For our bachelor students coming as for the undergraduate programs, we actually have guaranteed scholarships, and our total average cost of attendance for tuition, living expenses, everything is around $25,000 US per academic year for both undergraduate and graduate programs. So that's just a quick overview of Minnesota State University, Mankato, and where we are located. So now I'll get into the bulk of the presentation, which is about writing wonderful, stellar university essays. And I'll mention that the tips in here can be used for both bachelor, admission application essays, or graduate or PhD essays, but it really is focused more on undergraduate bachelor essays as far as some of the tips that are common within bachelor degree essay requirements in the United States. But certainly these tips can be used for master's and PhD programs as well. So to start, what are we talking about today? We'll be talking about the purpose of essays for university admission, thinking about personal reflection and what to include in your essays. So who are you and what are your values? Then also kind of flipping the question and looking at what are university values and do your values align with the program or the university that you are applying to? And then also talking about values in admissions essays, scholarship essays, and then some pro tips, and we'll have a time for question and answer at the end. All right, so admission essays. What is the point of an admission essay? Basically, this is your interview on paper. This is the chance for an admission counselor from the university you're applying to or from the program you're applying to get to know you as a person. So it shows who you are beyond your academic transcripts and your test scores. You are not just a grade point average. You're not just a test score. You are a person. who has passions and interests and values and a unique personality. So this gives a chance for you to shine through who you are and share anything that you think the admissions committee should know about you when they're considering your admission application. Practically, it also demonstrates your English writing skills as well, showing your fluency in English language. And so that can help the admission counselors understand you a little bit better as well. And of course, it makes you stand out from other student candidates who are also applying for university admission or to the same program that you're applying to. You want to make sure that you rise to the top as the best qualified candidate through the application process. So as you're beginning to think about the personal essay or personal statement that you are writing, one of the things, and this is very common in applying to US universities, US universities want to get to know you as an individual. And one of the things that makes you an individual is your values. So it's good to take time to reflect on who you are and what are your values. Take time to think about what are the three most important values that you have. Write those down and explain to yourself just in some notes as you're doing a brainstorming process how those values have shaped your life. How have they influenced your personal goals? How have they impacted your academic goals and what you have chosen to study? And how is it shaping your professional goals? Obviously, you're thinking about your academic future, but you're also thinking about that career after your graduation from your program. How have your values impacted your decision to pursue both your academic and your professional career goals? And how will that make you the best candidate for applying to the university and the program that you have chosen? So from those values, as you're brainstorming those ideas, also think about personal stories that demonstrate your experiences with those values and share examples from your story. So this is just to generate the brainstorming process, taking that time to do personal reflection before you begin writing. So how to use your values in writing an essay. So these values will show your uniqueness as a person and help you stand out to the admission committee. Because again, they want to see that you're more than just your academic grades. You're more than just the test score on your GRE or the SAT. They want to see who you are. So share your personality, share your qualities. These are all very important things. They don't want to see that you're just a cookie cutter academic writer. They want to see that you are a person with unique personality and character. So once you've had that brainstorming time and personal reflection to think about your values, you want to look at the universities that you've chosen to apply to and the programs you've chosen to apply to. Every university has their own set of values, believe it or not. There are many different types of universities and focuses of those university programs beyond just academics. So take the time to figure out what is the value of the university itself. Does the value of that university and that program align with your personal values? Is there a way that you can use your values on campus and practice those in day-to-day life, even as an academic student? And is there a place for you to share those values in the community of the university that you may be applying to? So some examples of what that might look like practically, I can share from our university. We are a public university, but one of the values that we have on our campus is volunteerism. And so through scholarship programs, we really encourage our students to apply themselves in the campus and in the community. So we have a very strong emphasis on volunteering. And how that's translated for some of our international students is through a scholarship program that we give to international students who come to the university. The main requirement to keep that scholarship is doing a certain number of volunteer hours that give back to the community, but also give students a chance to share their culture, and the values that they bring from their culture, as well as learn about American culture and Minnesotan culture from our community. And so that's one of the values, is giving back to the community, that idea of volunteerism. If you're applying to maybe another private university or a liberal arts university in the US, or maybe a different country abroad, it's possible that university has its own unique set of values. It could be focused on leadership. It could be focused on research. It could be focused on maybe it's a medical program, or maybe it's social justice, something that university holds overall beyond just the academics. So think about your values and how you can translate your values into the university values and tie that into an essay. So once you've done that brainstorming process of your personal values, evaluating the university values, you've basically got an essay jotted down. So now, this is the writing process for admissions essays. Writing that essay, or maybe a personal statement or statement of purpose, you hear those terms. Usually they're pretty interchangeable. In most cases, for a personal statement, they might give you some questions or some prompts that you need to answer within your essay, but sometimes it's just a general personal statement. So each university admission process is a little bit unique, so pay attention to those details. Within the actual essay itself, you will want to tell your story. So again, coming back to your personal values and how those relate to your academic and your professional goals. It's important to note that the essay process in various universities, sometimes it's used for the admission decision, and sometimes it's just a chance for them to get to know you as an admission candidate. So for example, some universities do have competitive admission. So you are competing against other students for a seat in that university or in that program. Other universities do not have competitive admission, but they still require an essay. So if that university does not have competitive admission, the essays can sometimes be used to help you qualify for scholarships or additional funding. So that's something that's important to note, that not every university essay is the same, depending on if it's competitive or not competitive admission. You'll want to make sure as you're writing your essay to write in your own style. This is not a research paper or a school report. You're not writing a newspaper article. You're writing an essay about yourself. Essays are not typically judged on your knowledge of a certain topic, especially at the bachelor level. Again, you might have some writing prompts or questions that you need to specifically answer in an essay, but admission counselors are looking for how you handle the content of your essay and what they can learn from you, not necessarily your specific knowledge on a topic. So continuing with putting your values into the admission essays, in your essay, it's important to focus on a theme. So we talked about narrowing down what are your personal values and how have those influenced your academic and professional goals. So focus on maybe those 1 to 3 values and find a common theme from those values that show your character and your personality. And then give specific examples or anecdotes to support your writing. So you'll want to tell maybe a short story of how you were able to use your values, or an experience that shaped your values in your life. So it's really important to show that evidence, because it will show your uniqueness as an applicant. So for additional types of essays, beyond just the admission essays, you may also be asked to write a personal statement for scholarship essays. So keep in mind the same guidance for admission-based essays. So you'll want to answer any of the prompts or the questions given to you in the application, but don't reuse essays from the admissions process. So if you have to write an admissions essay and a scholarship essay, don't copy and paste from both essays. Write separate statements of purpose and essays. Also, if you're writing essays for multiple universities, it is important to make each essay unique to the university that you're applying to. Admissions counselors can typically tell when you've just copied and pasted essays from university to university. Oftentimes students even make mistakes in their essays by not taking out the university name that they previously applied to. So they might include another university name in the essay that they've written for a different university. Those are big mistakes. So just from a practical standpoint, it's very important to not reuse those essays. Try to tailor them to each university or program that you are applying for. Because again, each university is going to have different essay requirements if it's a general statement of purpose or if they're having you address specific questions or topics. Pay attention to the length requirements. Typically, essays will be measured in word count. So you'll have to pay, or sometimes character count. So you will have to pay attention to the length of the requirement. If you are applying through something like a common application where you can add your essay into your overall application, we recommend writing it out separately in a Word document and then uploading it into your common application. Other universities might have like a copy and paste text box. I would recommend not writing it directly into that text box, but instead putting it in a separate Word document, saving it there, and then copying and pasting it. Sometimes that can impact the word count or the length requirements. So make sure to pay attention to that as well. Overall, when you're writing an essay too, it's important that less is more or simple is better. Be yourself and don't try to use big fancy words in applying to the essay just to show your academic characteristics. Your academics will speak for themselves in your grades as well as your test results. So again, this is their chance to get to know who you are as a person. So be yourself and demonstrate your values. So I want to talk about a couple pro tips as well as you're applying or brainstorming the essay process. One of the best suggestions that I have received from other counselors and have put into practice is using what's called the bullet point brag sheet. So a brag sheet is something just for you that you use and you don't have to share with anybody else unless you want to, where you write down all of your accomplishments, whether it's from your high school days or from a job that you've had or from your university time, whether it's personal, academic, or professional. Write down all of your accomplishments. Include things like scholarships, awards, extracurricular activities that you've participated in, anything that you're proud of. If you speak multiple languages, if you've had the chance to travel, put all of those things onto a piece of paper in short bullet points. And from that, you can start to pull out different themes from your life. Where are the areas that you have really excelled? Personally, academically, or even professionally. And from that, you can start to pull out the themes that you want to incorporate into your personal statement or your scholarship essay. Of course, this probably goes without saying. Make sure that you proofread for any mistakes or spelling errors. I know this seems like something that's really, really obvious, but even after proofreading, sometimes you still miss things. So it's also a good idea to read your essay out loud to yourself and also to someone else, because you want to make sure that your personal voice is coming through the tone of the essay. And so reading it to somebody else allows them to give feedback if the essay sounds like yourself and sounds like you, and if the flow of the essay is clear and concise, or if there's ways that you can fix it. It also helps you to fix any grammatical or spelling errors as well by reading it out loud. Sometimes you might not realize that you have really long, drawn out sentences, and maybe you can make those a little bit shorter and more concise. So again, reading it out loud just helps with that overall flow. And make sure that you keep the essay to the point. when you're applying to universities, admission counselors have many university or application essays to read, and they usually have short attention spans. So if it's a very long essay, they are still just going to skim that as quickly as possible. So it's important to get into your topic right away, keep it to the point, address the questions, address the prompts, and let your personality and your values shine through that essay. So that is really a very simplified, short, and to the point opportunity to talk about incorporating values into your essays. But again, I realize so many universities have different unique requirements for the essay process depending on the program you're applying to or the university you're applying to. So I want to give ample time for questions and answers to try to address some specific topics that you may have seen in the essays that you're writing for your program, and we can maybe brainstorm some ideas for those topics. So I'll take this time for question and answer as we move forward. All right. So if there are any questions, please go ahead, and I think you can type those into the chat box here. And feel free to write any questions that you might have for specific, there we go. Oops. Apologize, I'm clicking through learning this process. Feel free to write down any questions that you have for specific university requirements that you're going through. No problem. All right. And yes, if you joined the presentation a little bit late, that's not a problem. This is being recorded. And so I can follow up and share this with you by email. So not a problem if you missed some of the content or the questions. So feel free to ask any specific questions about writing university essays, and I would be happy to help answer those for you. Okay. So what about conditions for PhD candidates? So PhD applications tend to be very specific, and depending on the program that you're applying to, the essay process is going to look a little bit different than it would for the undergraduate or the master's degree, because PhD programs tend to be very research-based and focused on specific research topics. So in most cases, you'll have to share multiple writing samples from previous research that you have done. But in your personal statement, it's going to be much more research-based and career-focused on the program that you're applying to. So within your PhD program, you may also be applying for a fellowship within that program as well. So personal essays will look a little bit different as far as the questions that you need to address in the personal statement or any prompts that you need to talk to. So a portion of your essays will typically focus on your research goals and interests in your PhD program, but also talking about your previous research experience as well from your master's level program. So you'll really need to pay attention and even contact the faculty from the PhD program that you're applying to if you have specific questions about the essay. But regardless, I'm going to go back to one of the slides. I think you can still see this here. Even at the PhD level, the tactics about sharing your personality and your values is going to be just as important at the PhD level as it will be at the master's or the bachelor level. The reason for that is when you're applying to a PhD program, it tends to be a much smaller applicants, and it tends to be a smaller academic program itself, where you're going to be working very closely with a cohort of students and very closely with a smaller cohort of university faculty. So not only do they want to make sure that you're a good fit academically for that program, but they want to make sure that you're a good fit personality-wise. Will you be getting along with your peers? Will you be getting along well with the other faculty? Are you going to fit into the academic learning environment and the personality of that program? Yes, every program has its own personality as well. So they want to get to know you as a person to make sure that over the next several years while you're working on your PhD, that you will be a great asset to their program. And you also want to make sure that you're going to fit in well, and that the people that you are working with throughout your PhD program and studying alongside fit your personality type as well. So even those characteristics can shine through in a personal statement. And again, typically at the PhD level, you will also have to do an interview. So whether that's a virtual interview or an in-person interview, that is something that will also accompany your writing essay. So I hope that addresses the general topics of PhD candidates. Again, you can still incorporate those personalities, personal values to share your personal, academic, and professional goals. And then a follow-up question to that. Let's see here. Apologize, I'm reading through some of these questions. Okay, so are we supposed to attach additional files or documents along with the essay to prove our achievement? So Ali is asking about supporting documents as part of the application process for the essay requirements. This will depend on the university that you're applying to. Yes, in some cases, if you have done specific volunteer experience or have participated in different electives, whether it's a community organization, a professional organization, or maybe a sports club or a leadership team or research team, in some cases you will have to upload those certificates of completion or participation from those activities. It's not always a requirement, but I think when it comes to applying to university programs, it's better to share more information than less information. So if you have additional space to upload those documents into either the common application or the direct application of the university, I would go ahead and include those pieces. So again, whether it's a certificate of participation or completion or a letter of recommendation from something that you participated in, I would include that as part of the application process, but it's not always a specific requirement to show, to prove your achievements alongside your essay. Typically, admission counselors read your essay and they have to take your word for what you say. They just assume that you're telling the truth in your essays, and they value your honesty. And as part of the application process, at least in the United States, every university that you would be applying to is going to have you certify that the information you provide in your application is true and accurate. So you do, of course, the admissions counselors are assuming that you're being honest and accurate, even in your essays, if they don't specifically ask for proof of your achievements. That is a great question. All right, so another follow-up question. Can we benefit from these methodologies when writing an essay to apply to fellowship programs as well? So again, going back to the content I mentioned for the PhD candidates, if you're applying for a fellowship program as well, these methodologies can help with that application process as well. So again, if you're applying for a fellowship program, it's going to have similar requirements that I mentioned for the PhD. You'll still have to write some kind of statement of purpose. Again, it's going to be a little bit more professionally focused because they'll be asking about your personal experience, or your professional experience with research, from maybe your master's level program, etc. So you'll have to give some demonstrated experience from your academic career as well as any personal career experience you've had. But even through that, you can still reflect on the personal values that you've used to apply for that program. So you'll want to make sure to still use these methodologies when you're applying for fellowships or PhD programs. So I hope that helps answer the question. Let's see if there's any additional questions coming in. Oops, there you go. Okay, there we go. I just switched. So it looks like there's 2 chat boxes. I apologize. I'm learning the technology as well. Okay. So do we offer online programs? That is a question I received earlier. Yes, we do offer some programs online, primarily at the master's level, focused on business and some professional science masters as well. And as a follow-up to that, we do offer some certificate programs online, but certificate programs, if you're coming to the United States only for a certificate program, unfortunately, you cannot get the student visa in the US for certificate-only programs. You do need to be pursuing a degree. But if that certificate program is online, you can take that program from home if you're outside of the United States. So any sample essays or sources that you can use, I don't have any sample essays with me at the moment, but as a follow-up to this presentation, I will share some examples from a few of the resources that we give to students about essay prompts, examples of professional essays that you can use as you're generating ideas for the writing process. So I will share that in the follow-up emails as well. Another question, should we contact professors with the essay or the admission office? Yes, absolutely. If you have any specific questions about the essays, the admission counselors and the faculty from your PhD program, they are there to be a resource for you as you're going through this application process. So it's a really good idea to have a strong relationship with your admission counselor, whether that's undergraduate admission or graduate admission. Make sure that you build that relationship and ask any questions. You can also contact professors as well for specific questions. In my experience, at the master's and PhD levels, professors are very, very busy with current students and very busy with their own research oftentimes. So I just want to warn you that you might have a delayed response if you contact professors of the faculty directly. Not always. Some are very, very good at getting back to students quickly. But just in the experience with students and professors, there can be a delay. Versus contacting the admissions office, their focus is customer service of the student. And so they really try to have quick turnaround times to respond to questions about application requirements, essay requirements, things like that. So it's a great idea to contact them with any questions that you have. All right. Another question, do letters of recommendation, does it have to be academic or from previous workplaces if we have some working experience? So letters of recommendation are also very key in addition to the personal essay. Letters of recommendation will give insight into your academic abilities as well as your professional abilities. So in most cases, if you're applying to an academic program, your letters of recommendation should be academic based. However, many times if you're applying to a master's or a PhD program, there may have been several years of a gap from your bachelor's degree to your master's degree, or from your master's degree to your PhD. And so if you've had work experience in between those times, definitely use your professional supervisor or colleagues as letters, as references for your letters of recommendation. It is perfectly acceptable for career professionals to use letters of recommendation from their work experience. But I think if you can use a combination of both an academic reference as well as a professional reference, that is a great balance for any student who has an academic background, but also a career background. Another question here, I apologize, I skipped over this one earlier. Can you tell us about the language requirements? So I'm assuming you mean language requirements. I'll take this one of two ways. As far as writing the essay itself, the language requirement, of course, would have to be written in English if you're applying to an English-speaking program. And also the letters of recommendation that you receive should be translated into English. If the person who's writing that letter of recommendation did not write the letter in English, it should have a certified translation. But also the language requirements, I know you probably mean the standardized scores from the TOEFL or the IELTS. For our university, though the TOEFL and IELTS requirements are the same for the bachelor degree programs. So our minimum TOEFL requirement for our bachelor programs is actually a 61 on the internet-based TOEFL or a 5.5 on the IELTS. But for master's and doctoral programs, the TOEFL and the IELTS requirements will vary by program. So the average requirement at the master's level for TOEFL will range between a 70 to an 80 on the IBT or a 6.5 to the 7.0 on the IELTS. All right, another question as well. A student had asked about certificate programs. Is an admission essay required for certificate programs? It depends, again, on the program that you're applying to. Some certificate programs do want you to write a brief statement of purpose just to explain why you're applying for that certificate program and how that certificate program is going to benefit you as an academic student or as a career professional. So if you're applying to a certificate program for information technology, for example, you might want to address how the specific classes in that IT certificate program are going to benefit your career and why you've chosen that specific program. All right, another follow-up question. Do professors have an impact on who is being selected into the program? That is an excellent question. If it's a master's or a PhD program, yes, absolutely. The faculty or the professors from that program will oftentimes be the ones who are actually reviewing the applications from the student candidates. So if you've had interaction throughout the application process with professors, that is something that's going to be on their mind. If you've reached out to them, asked questions, followed up with them with specific requirements, that can certainly help the application process, again, at the master's and PhD levels. Typically at universities, at least in the United States, you will apply to the graduate admission office with your application. The graduate admission office will first screen the applications, and then they will direct those to the faculty or the academic department to then make a decision who they want to select into that program. So those professors certainly do have a voice in the application process. Not every professor in the department is necessarily part of the application committee for reading applications. So some departments might actually have a graduate coordinator who heads the application screening. So in most cases, they will give you a point of contact for specific graduate admission questions from the academic department. So it's a really good idea to build a relationship with that person or with that committee who's going to be reviewing your application. All right, another question related to PhD applications. Shall we mention our desired PhD research topic and why we are interested in that topic and what we're planning to do with it after graduation? Yes, absolutely. Because PhD programs tend to be research focused, your research is definitely going to have an impact on the application process. In most cases, you will have to submit your research goals, and you will have to outline these in the personal statement of what is your previous research experience, how will you be building on that research experience through your PhD program, and what your research topics and interests are. And if you have any specific professors from the department that you're interested in working with, you can also address the specific faculty mentor that you might want to consider to be your mentor through the program. Sometimes universities will actually ask that within the application process. Who do you want to select as your faculty mentor? So it's a good idea to review the biographies of the professors in the academic department. Usually they will include the information about their research specializations and research background. So it's a really good idea to do your research of the faculty and the academic department professors to figure out who would be the best person to eventually be your faculty mentor for your PhD program, who has done research that's related to your research topic that you're interested in. And you can address that information in your essay. So I hope that helps answer that question. Another question as well about English language proficiency and accepting Duolingo. So at this time, our university is still getting official permission to accept Duolingo. That has not been approved as one of our English proficiency measurements yet, but we're hoping that approval will come very soon. So for right now, for the undergraduate admission, we accept the TOEFL, the IELTS, or we will accept the SAT as well. In place of TOEFL or IELTS, we're actually test optional when it comes to those standardized tests for bachelor admission. For the graduate programs, we would accept the TOEFL or the IELTS. And then in some cases for our graduate programs, depending on the program that you're applying to, you will need to provide the GMAT. Typically, the GMAT is required for our STEM-based programs and some of our social and behavioral science programs. And then, the GRE is required for our STEM-based programs and social behavioral science programs. The GMAT is required for our business-related programs. So that's a little overview of those test score requirements, but Duolingo, not yet, hopefully soon. And then another question, if we include all this information, wouldn't it be a very long essay to read? And is there any way to organize it properly? Yes. So I know I mentioned in the presentation, you want to keep the essay within the writing requirements. Typically, in most cases, application essays, statement of purpose essays will have a limitation on word count or character count. So you do have a limitation of how much you can write. They don't want to read 20 pages of an essay. They might limit it to maybe 2 pages maximum in some cases. Sometimes it might be even a little bit shorter. So the best way to organize it, again, is going back to those brainstorming points where you put all of your values, your academic achievements, your personal achievements, professional achievements, as well as your goals in just a bullet point list. Write down everything just to brainstorm the things that you might include in an essay topic, and then start to pull out the themes from that list to narrow down your essay to one theme and one focus. So again, you'll incorporate your values, but also your academic and any professional or research experience or research topics. As you're pulling out the themes related to those, you'll want to also write an outline of your essay. So going back to just a basic outline, include an introduction, the body, and then a conclusion. So if you can keep it to those 3 main criteria that go into an essay, focusing on the introduction of who you are. The body of the essay will probably talk about your experiences that relate to the values that you're sharing, your academic goals, your professional goals, your research goals. That will be the main bulk of the essay, and then the conclusion should tie it all together. So less is more. Try to be as concise as possible. And this will take several tries. So it's important to start that essay process as early as possible. Just so you can go through multiple writing drafts of an essay. You don't expect to get it all perfect on the first try. And also have other people read through it as well, because sometimes your family members and your friends or your colleagues who know you the best can give really helpful feedback about how to shorten your essay. So make sure you do have somebody else proofread it. Do we send these essays online or by mail, especially for Minnesota State University? So for the personal essays, for the university, it depends on the requirements, just in general to the United States. Some universities will have you upload your personal essay into an application portal. So you'll actually save it as a PDF document, sometimes a Word document, but PDF documents are more professional and of course cannot be edited. So my recommendation is to save your documents as PDFs and upload those into the application portal. Other universities will want you to send physical copies of your letters of your essays. Sometimes they'll want physical copies of letters of recommendation as well. So it depends on the university. For Minnesota State University specifically, we have the upload option. So in our graduate admission portal, you can just upload the documents directly into your application file. And then for the personal statements and essays. So you'll just want to make sure to read the requirements from the university you're applying to. Okay. No worries. These are great questions. All right. St. Cloud State University at St. Cloud, Minnesota is granting academic cultural sharing scholarship for every foreign student. How about your university? Do you have a similar scholarship for Turkish students? Yes, you are exactly correct. St. Cloud State is part of the Minnesota State system. So we are essentially sister universities, part of the same system. Students can actually take classes on both campuses with certain requirements. So I myself, as a staff person at Minnesota State University, have actually taken classes at St. Cloud State. And vice versa, we get students on our campus. And we do offer a very similar scholarship as St. Cloud State. The name of our scholarship is called, it was previously the Cultural Contribution Scholarship. We just changed the name to the International Maverick Scholarship. So starting fall 2020, the International Maverick Scholarship is our academic culture sharing scholarship. So with the scholarship, it is a 40% discount on tuition. So our annual tuition for international bachelor students is around $16,700 US per year. With the 40% scholarship, the tuition is around $9,180 US per academic year. So for 2 semesters, just around $9,200 with that scholarship. The scholarship is guaranteed to every bachelor international student who's accepted to the university. So there's not a separate application process. You just have to apply and be accepted, and you will get that scholarship for the first year. Once you are at the university, you must maintain that scholarship based on your academic grade point average at the university, and also based on the culture sharing or the volunteer experience. So you are required to do a certain number of volunteer hours as part of that scholarship by participating in different cultural events, such as our international festival that we have every year, the cultural signature nights that we host that highlight different cultures and countries around the world, where you might give a presentation about your country, do a cultural performance such as music or dance or reciting poetry, cooking food from your culture. There's many different ways that students have participated. We've also had students go to local elementary and high schools and give presentations about their culture as well. So we do offer this scholarship for every international student, including our students from Turkey as well. So I hope that helps. I'm so glad you've done your research and you know about St. Cloud State as well. So I think we are coming up against our time limit here for the presentation. So is there any final questions? If there's anybody else who has a final question? All right, what is the minimum GPA, IELTS, and GRE requirement applying for fellowship programs at Minnesota State Mankato? So it depends on the program that you're applying to as far as the minimum GPA, IELTS, and GRE scores. Overall, for most of our programs, the GPA requirement is a 3.0 cumulative GPA. Oh, I'm just sharing my contact details in the WhatsApp or the chat box. So it's typically a 3.0 grade point average. In some cases, the program might require a 3.5 on the US 4.0 scale. The IELTS requirement, the average IELTS for our graduate programs is typically a 7.0, 6.5 to 7.0. So it is pretty attainable depending on the English language background that you've had. And then the GRE score will vary by program that you're applying to. So for fellowships at Minnesota State University, we have limited fellowship opportunities, but we do have quite a few research assistantship positions. So a research, just very quickly, since we're running out of time here, graduate assistantships or teaching assistantships are kind of similar to fellowships in that they're tied to a job at the university, but they're not focused so much on research. So you'll work for an academic department or student service office for maybe 20 hours per week. And then in return, you would receive a tuition waiver. So your tuition would be primarily paid for by the university program. And you would also receive a living stipend towards your living expenses. So at Minnesota State, our tuition waiver is typically up to 9 credits, which is a full-time student. So up to 9 credits would be paid for by the program. And then in most cases, you would receive $10,000 US per year towards your living expenses. So that is more common on our campus, the assistantships rather than the fellowship programs. So again, the GPA requirements for that is around a 3.0, some cases a 3.5. The IELTS, 6.5 to 7.0, and then the GRE, it actually depends on the program that you're applying to. So I hope this information has helped everybody. I'm just going to type in my WhatsApp number here as well. So I have my contact information. So feel free to follow up with me by email or by WhatsApp, and I would be happy to help answer any questions that you have. So I want to say thank you all so much for attending this presentation. I hope you learned something, and I hope it was valuable for you. And I also want to thank IEFT for their coordination of the presentation and helping me give this information to you. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It was a great presentation. You answered a lot of questions, and probably there will be more questions to come in your email. So great. Thanks for participating.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for hosting. I appreciate everything.
Talk soon. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.